All right, hey guys, we're getting ready to do a live enlightened conversation here. Feel free to join us if you're inspired to. You guys see the link there. You can ask questions on the Zoom. Perfect. All right, I'm just going to share this into one group. Awesome. All right, let's do it. Share to page.
You ever start going live and wondering if it's making sure it's not on mute or making sure you share
I've done it before. I've done it before. Yeah, and I didn't realize it until afterwards. Unfortunately, they were commenting, and I couldn't see it. Like we can't hear you.
I've totally done that before.
Yeah. The good news is I knew that it was a recording on Zoom, so it was just what I was trying to let people hear it on the stream. That didn't work out so well, but I always tell people that's just the thought that counts when it comes to the live stream, because I just want people to, if they can tune in live, awesome. But the actual recording, we got that here, so let's do it. All right, recording. All right, let's do it. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Enlightened Conversations. Excited for today and have an awesome guest with us out in Salt Lake City, Utah, here in the United States, and excited to connect with Aaron Myers today, who is a love and relationship coach and came highly recommended from a friend of mine. Shout out to Sarah up in there in Quebec, and just excited to talk with Aaron today and to flow some loving energy towards all you guys out there, no matter where you might be on the planet. So, without further ado, for me, I want to introduce you guys to Aaron, and you can share with the audience so they're more familiar with you, who you are, what you do, why you do it, all these good things.
Yeah. So basically, how I fell into the love and relationship idea was I actually started working with people on all kinds of stuff. Well, if I back up a lot, I used to work with psychological marketing. That sounds like a fancy term, but basically you're just trying to figure out where people are on this buying spectrum. Are they researching? Are they kind of narrowing down their decisions? Or, yep, I'm full blown, I know exactly what I want, I'm going to get it. So where are they at on this buying spectrum? So if you can figure out what people are doing, and then you can psychologically implant what they need to do to take the next step, and if you know what that next step is, you can psychologically implant it. And so it's like, okay, Big Brother's watching type thing, and yes, it is, actually. So it's kind of like, okay, well, you can get people to move along this step. Well, I've been doing that for a while, actually. I actually worked for the New York Times. I used to live in New York and do that there, and I did it for several other, I guess, pretty big companies. And then started working for a place locally in Utah. And the guy comes up to me, and actually a gal, and she said, Aaron, well, actually it wasn't like that. She was like, oh, I got this splitting headache. I don't know. Oh, I'm just going to go home. It's a migraine. Aaron, you know what you're doing. I'm just going to leave you with it. And I said, this may sound really weird. Her name was Holly. I said, this may sound really weird, but if you want to take a lunch break, like I know it's only 10:30, but we could take one early and we could chat. I know how to help you. And she goes, I don't even think it computed at the time. She was like, Aaron, marketing, migraine, take care. What's that have to do with anything? So I said, no, but seriously, if you want. And she goes, I'm just going to go home, So about 10 minutes later, she comes back to my desk. And she goes, were you serious about this migraine thing? I said, yeah, if you want to give it a shot. So we both took an early lunch, talked for about a half hour maybe. And she goes, whoa, wait. Oh my gosh, like what happened? Like where it's gone, dude, it's gone. About a month after that, somebody else comes to my desk where I'm working, and they're like, Aaron, Holly told me if I had a migraine. I know this sounds really random, but she told me if I had a migraine to come to you. I was like, oh, it's not so random. Yeah, you want to take an early lunch break? So we did. About 3 months after that, there was a guy that was having a relationship issue. He found out his wife had cheated on him and broke his heart. I mean, he was like a mess in survival mode. I don't even know how he made it to work. But he comes up and he goes, this is kind of confidential, but someone told me if I had like a problem to come to you.
Mm.
So we ended up meeting up, and he asked me the question. So this is me going full circle. Why did I get into this? He asked me a question. He said, Aaron, why are you in marketing? Like, seriously. And I said, well, I like it. And he goes, no, dude, why are you in marketing? I said, well, I do like it. I do like understanding people's mindsets. And he's like, no, no, no. What you did for me today, this is what you need to be doing, dude. And so I gave it some thought, and about 2 weeks later, I wasn't working for marketing anymore. I started doing this full time, and I really just started going out helping people who had like relationship issues, and it's weird. Like somebody with a relationship issue, usually it's not just the relationship. Sometimes there's something under the hood. You pick that sucker up and you find out that there's some internal stuff going on. That the relationship is usually just like the shell of it, and if you go underneath, there's a lot of self-worth issues going on. There's a lot of issues about how they believe in themselves. Sometimes people are actually sending mixed signals out as to what they want and what they fear getting, so the signals kind of cancel each other out, and they don't really get what they wanted in the end. So that's basically how I started getting into it. It's evolved quite a bit since then. Now, basically, what it comes out to is I use these things called love loss indicators. And what the heck is that? Well, basically, everybody from birth, we're taught that there's a certain way to receive love, to feel love, and if we, well, go figure, we cry to be fed, we cry to cry, we cry when we're hungry, we cry when we're hurt, and that's kind of how we give cues. But we're taught, like, okay, if I don't get a response from crying, I better cry harder, because if I don't cry harder, I might not get the attention I need to get the result I need. And so we start to think in a weird way that, oh, wait, if I don't get the result, that means I need to try harder. And we start to think, if I don't get a result, I'm not loved. Like the result equates to love. And so that's supposed to change when we become adults. But a lot of people have no idea that it changes, or let alone even how to change it. So that's kind of the basic idea, going through these called love loss indicators, how to show people, and we all have areas where we lack, we all have areas in abundance. It's a matter of figuring out, if I'm not getting the result I really want in a relationship, or in any area really, it's because these indicators haven't been tweaked the way they should in my life. And sometimes it's from childhood, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I just haven't upgraded the system yet from where I was to where I want to be. So that's kind of how it goes.
Super interesting. I'm always curious whenever someone goes from, because you obviously discovered all these awesome things that benefited you in your life, and then fast forwarded to you helping people in your when you're working in the corporate world and with migraines and all of these things. I think the audience is going to want to know, like, what type of things. Well, how did you come across the things that you became aware of that led to you helping people? I always find that curious, interesting, because I know we all come here as little loving little babies, and then along our journeys, maybe forget who we are and start comparing ourselves and asking, are we worthy, and all these things. And the reason that I do what I do and why so many do what they do is so that we can help the light bulb come back on for all of us, so that we can know who we truly are. And so I guess two-part question, like, how did the light bulb come on for you? And then B, what the heck did you do to help someone lose a migraine in a 30-minute lunch conversation?
So, my story starts out from a really, really well-intended father who turned out to have issues of his own. He was quite physically abusive. He had no intention of being abusive, but there's kind of like this control issue. I'm going to control everything in my children's lives, not to control us, but because he thought we were a reflection of him. And I don't know if any I'm sure somebody out there in the audience has kids or they've been around kids enough to sometimes people will think if a child doesn't, you know, toe the line, it's a reflection of my parenting. And if my parenting looks bad, that means I'm bad. And that's how my dad thought. So he wasn't intentionally trying to control us, but it was, I mean, some of the stories are just absolutely ridiculous. But now I know that, but as a kid, I didn't know that. So fast forward to, I'm 38 now. When I was 30 years old, I was like still trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to be in life, what I wanted to do in life. And any direction I tried to go, I couldn't get myself to take action. I just couldn't do it. Like I knew what I had to do, but I knew that I was procrastinating. I knew that I was putting it off. I knew that, well, I just considered myself lazy, and I wasn't lazy because there were certain areas where I worked my butt off, but they were always in areas where I didn't have the fear of going past whatever I had already, knew that I could do. So when I was trying to figure out all this stuff, and just simple tasks, man, simple tasks like, so I used to do a lot of web development. And I mean, when it's in a local environment on your computer, you can make all the mistakes you want. Nobody's going to see it until you put it out on the internet. Then people might see it. But I couldn't even get myself to do it on my own computer where nobody would see it because it was like, oh, shoot, what if I make a mistake? And then it like messes up the entire 37,000 lines of code. And it's like, dude, get over it. Nobody's going to see it. Because I was afraid that, if I screw up, then I'm not good enough, and that will reflect. And like, what if my wife walks by in the background and she sees that I screwed this up? And oh my gosh, don't be embarrassed that way. So I couldn't figure out where does all this garbage come from. And like you said, finding yourself, that's where the journey began. Like, why the heck do I have all this garbage? It's just nonsense, this head trash. That's where the journey began, trying to figure it out. And yeah, I went through all the steps of figured out that I had so many screwed up issues. I didn't even know my dad was abusive. Like kids getting closed, white knuckles, clenched fist to the jawline, blood being spilled. I mean, how crazy is that to not even know that that was abusive? I don't know. I don't know. I was like, oh, everybody gets that treatment. No, everybody does not get that treatment. Then figuring it out, and then going through a period of feeling like I was really upset because I deserved to have a better father. I would have had a better life. I would have been farther ahead. But then that too comes from feeling like, well, if I'm not farther ahead, does that make me less of a person? No, it doesn't make me less of a person. So getting over that, my dad and I, we have a great relationship now. We actually talk probably like once or twice a week. There have been areas in my life where I've struggled, where he has been, a great rock to help out, to get me back on the path. He has a very difficult time admitting, like, 38 years, I've never heard the guy say sorry. But now I know that he doesn't say sorry because he doesn't want to have to go back to even thinking that he's not good enough because of the way he reacted. Which isn't true either. I mean, he's just beating himself up for something that's not true. But again, I can't really judge because obviously I did that when I was 30 trying to figure it all out, beat myself up for not getting a result. So that's where part of the journey began, trying to figure it out. At the same time I was going to school, same time-ish that I graduated and started working for the New York Times. Same time I consulted for some other big wig companies. And I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I get myself to, because I was like trembling to give any advice. I mean, people were paying me for advice for marketing, and I was like hesitant to give them advice. I must have looked so timid to these people, like, why did we hire this guy again? He doesn't even know what he's doing. But then figuring all that garbage out, for me it was, and I actually had like some stress tics. And you know how people have like tics and Tourette's, they might yell something, and or they might like have some incontrollable or not seemingly non-voluntary action where they might tick or something like that. I had some of that from stress too, trying to figure my life out. And so I figured, hey, if this works, is it like really foolproof, or does it not always work? And I had tried the concepts I took to marketing, so I did pretty well in marketing. And but my passion has always been like psychology and how people work more than how the numbers and digits work. But if it's a true principle, it should work either way, with whether it's marketing, whether it's people, or whether it's biology, whether it's psychology, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I tried it with a few people in the office. It worked out, and then just started spreading from there.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's always curious for me, and you, of course, such a great reminder for people in the audience, Aaron. Like a lot of times, like I mean, we all have areas of our life that are super challenging coming up, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it's and like you mentioned, like we might not even know, like while we're having the experience, like you know, it may not, it might the experience might actually seem worse to us, like after we start uncovering, like
Right.
wait a minute, like that wasn't, you know, that wasn't cool. Um, but it's
Yeah.
just it's awesome example that you are as far as how not only can you come out of the other side, but also doesn't have to completely you know, you still have a relationship with your dad, which is awesome. So
Yeah.
you know, I know that didn't happen overnight, but as you discovered yourself and who you are, that leaves, you know, open you know, potential for relationships that maybe at one time you might not have known, you know, were going to look like that. So I think that's a great
I agree.
reminder for everybody, and just encouragement for people that may be going through a challenging time now, or of course, I'm sure I've gone through challenging times before, that there'll be
Yeah.
parts of that experience that, you know, whether it be today or, you know, down the road, that we'll realize are actually serving us in what we're doing in life today. Because I know that you're a better coach because of being able to, because of that life experience, and actually being able to share, you know, with your clients the way that you share now. Um,
I
so
think so.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What are some of the foundational things that, you know, if somebody comes to you and are you getting a lot of people that are, you know, maybe they're coming to you experiencing whether it be heartbreak, or they want a relationship, or a little bit of both, or what types of people are normally coming to
Yeah.
you?
So where I put my advertising shingle out, people come for all kinds of stuff, like anything under the sun. But the way I market is, you know, somebody who they can't find the right relationship, they can't find the right guy, or what am I doing wrong that I can't find them? Why am I getting all these people that are non-committal? Or how do I get over my trust issues from when I was mistreated or a past traumatic relationship? Because like, I know I have to get over that because I'm sending the wrong message to the guy I'm repelling, pushing away, because I know I'm kind of doing that. But how do you get over something like that if you fear getting treated like that again? Those are normally the number one people that come for relationships.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's super interesting. Like when, you know, for people that out there right now are looking for a relationship, like I always love to remind people that it's awesome sharing a planet with 7.7 billion other
Yeah.
human beings. Because, you know, with certain things in life, like for instance, you know, if you look in the mirror and you say you want to, you know, look totally different, that's not likely or possibly. I mean, it's just not likely going to happen today or tomorrow. You know, it's going to be an ongoing journey. Um, you know,
Yeah, I
with
don't have that trick. I
yeah,
don't have
I
that trick.
haven't met anyone with it. I like to leave everything open for possibility, but I just haven't met the person that can prove that, so that we can believe it and like run the 4 minute mile after that. But you know, when it comes to relationships, and you know, it's kind of, I mean, it's similar as far as the process of manifestation. I just enjoy the fact that at any time we could be meeting someone that could end up being, you know, just an awesome connection in our life, and whatever that looks like, whether it be a new friendship or intimate relationship, or whatever it might be. Like that can happen, you know, at any time, at any moment, synchronistically. And at the same time, like when people are coming to you and you know, they have some things going on internally to where, you know, right now, you know, they may not be, you know, being the version of the relationship that they actually want to attract,
True.
which,
True.
you know, makes it very challenging for us to, you know, attract. And that's why I've noticed a lot of times people, and I'm sure you do too, as far as people having similarities in relationships, because the common denominator in both is they were still involved. So no,
It's a hard one to swallow, man.
Yeah.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's fun to joke about it as far as like, every life experience that any of us have had. Like, there's been one constant. You were there. You were there for all of them. So
It's difficult sometimes to point that out because, like, okay, I mean, let's talk about how the brain works. And so far, as we know, like human beings, we will see, hear, smell, taste, and touch in order to gather in input and information. But we know those aren't the only ones because, like, there are different animals out there, like bats, for instance. They have echolocation. Well, we don't have that. So, like, as far as we know, human beings will use those five. Okay, so we'll say that's how information comes in. And the moment something happens in our environment that we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch, we will almost simultaneously, it seems like it, but almost simultaneously we feel something, like an emotion. And then it gets stored in the brain with the emotion and the things we saw, heard, smelled, tasted, and touched. So it would lead us to think, I get fouled up or, I fudge up on this all the time, but what I saw, that's what made me feel this way. And, going along with I'm the common denominator, right? But it doesn't seem that way if I saw it, that must have been the cause of me feeling it. If somebody said something to me that I didn't like, that's why I got upset. But that's not really how it works. The emotions are not a gauge for other people for what we saw, heard, smelled, tasted, or touched. The emotions are a gauge for how I feel about myself the moments that I saw, heard, smelled, tasted, or touched something. And it's almost backwards because let's say something, somebody told me something that was really offensive, or a guy just ghosted me and I was dating, or a girl ghosted me, or like someone cheated on me or something. Now, I know this is going to sound really taboo to a lot of people, and people might say, that was just totally messed up. And I'm not denying that part. But that's not where the emotion comes from. The emotion, now what they did for their own reasons. But the emotion actually comes in not because of what they did, but because I now feel less than because I was cheated on. Because I feel like I'm not lovable. Because I feel like I'm broken. And the emotion isn't to say that you're really less lovable or you're broken or anything like that. The emotion is to say, you will keep feeling this until that you know you are worth something regardless of what happens to you. And then whatever happens to you, it will no longer have the power to affect you. And then, interestingly enough, you find that that thing no longer has power to affect me as a person because I know my true worth. And now all of a sudden, I don't even go to that type of person anymore, because the real reason I went to that type of person in the first place, paradoxically, was to fill that void of not believing or feeling I was lovable. And now all of a sudden that is made whole, that vulnerability is no longer there, that gap has been filled. My preference in a partner actually changes because I don't have that gap to fill. And interestingly enough, speaking of law of manifestation, law of attraction, it's a hard pill to swallow, but when you go under the hood, it's like the reason that happened isn't necessarily because of what I believed about myself, but the reason I got hurt is because that's what I believed about myself. So the emotion doesn't say that you're worth less because you got cheated on. It's saying you will feel worthless until you know your worth regardless of what happens or regardless if you're cheated on. It's kind of backwards. Does that make any sense?
absolutely. No, I love that. That's a really great reminder. It's like thinking that the external, just allowing that to control our, how we're feeling internally, and not realizing that it's in reverse. Probably one of the biggest challenges that we have as human beings, because you mentioned like everything is like we translate, seeing, smelling, tasting, and touching, and that's what we think, life is. And so using those things to, and I used to be this used to be one of my greatest weaknesses, is everything is for, I made a video about this last Thursday, just talking about how there was a big part of my life where if I didn't have anything to look forward to externally, in the next couple of days, I would feel bad.
Yeah.
Like I'd be like, I don't have anything to look forward to. I'm bored. Like I'd use things like this.
I fall to that.
Not realizing that, for all of us, what's reflecting on the inside, and if that's what's going on, then it's going to, there's going to be more unpleasant, maybe more, not so much fun life experiences, which now we're observing that again, and then all of a sudden we feel worse, and now we're beating ourselves up for it because maybe we read a law of attraction book one time and we're like, I'm not doing any of this stuff, and like maybe it's just not working for me, something wrong with me. And so yeah, it could be like a vicious circle when we don't realize like how much power we have in the present moment, to be able to to be the energy that we'd like to really see reflecting out versus the other way around and trying to control it all. Because I haven't met the human that is so good at controlling all the external circumstances to where they could just have unicorns and rainbows and like just everything is just. I haven't met that human yet, so that's a great reminder.
Yeah, and I came across this principle probably last year, 2019 in October. I was writing up a patent for the methodology that I used. It gets pretty geeky, pretty nerdy. If you can't already tell by the stuff I've mentioned, like, it's pretty deep. So there's this principle of exposure. So if somebody is not exposed to an option, they cannot make that choice. So for instance, Noel, I'm hoping for this example, I don't know that you do or don't, but I'm guessing you don't speak Chinese, maybe?
No, not even one word.
Okay. So the example I would use here is, and I know this is extreme, but the principle applies everywhere. If you're not exposed to enough Chinese, this conversation in Chinese is not even an option for either one of us. Now, do you have the option to go to the bookstore? Do you have the option to go to Amazon and buy a book on Lonely Planet or Pimsleur or something like that, Rosetta Stone, and start learning Chinese? Yeah, that's an option. But right here, right now, having a full-blown conversation, it's not an option. You can't even make that choice. Take that in the area of like somebody wanting to change their life right here, right now. The trick is you have to be exposed to how to do it, because there's certain things that I might want to make that choice, but I don't even know the choice that I don't know to make because I've never been exposed to thinking that way. So as far as like, how do I change my life from where it is to where I want it to go? Sometimes it might be 180 degrees, and you have to be exposed to how to do it. Otherwise, it's not an option to even make it. And it usually comes in two parts. Well, it always comes in two parts. There's the intellectual part where it's like, I get it. But then sometimes people get in the moment and they don't remember to do it in the moment. Or after the moment, it's like, oh man, that's what I should have done in the moment. I sent out mixed signals in the moment. I didn't even realize I was doing it. Because there's also the emotional exposure. So knowing it isn't enough. I mean, we all know stuff that we don't do. We all know stuff we don't do. Because it doesn't always feel right in the moment, or it feels painful in the moment. Or there are these weird things in psychology called false positives that we think, hey, this is a good feeling, why is this bad? Because it's the thing that makes us feel that internally, and we should have felt it internally already. You take away the external thing, and you find out you really wouldn't have felt it. So it's a false positive. Even stuff like that, we all get tripped up on stuff like that. But if you're not exposed to it, there's no way you can even make the decision to do it, intellectually or emotionally. So it's like, yeah, for me, like I want to make more money, something like that. I'm not afraid to say I want to make more money. But if I have to be exposed to how to do it, and in the moment that I'm making the decision, I have to be exposed to it emotionally too, so that it feels right and I don't actually go against what I feel is right in the moment, whether it's, it causes me pain to do it, or I hesitate to do it, or I delay doing it, or I procrastinate to doing it. Both of those, the intellectual and the emotional exposure, they have to be there. Can't do it. Can't do it to where I am one person today, a different person tomorrow, unless I'm exposed to the how. Can't do it. It's not even an option to choose.
Absolutely. No, I love that. That's one of the reasons I do everything I do, Aaron, is because just what you said. Without the awareness, then do we even have the choice to make a change, to make a difference? Because you don't even know that you have an option to choose something different. Yeah. Right. One thing that no one ever hears from me is that you should make a certain choice, because the the power of choice is up to the individual. Like none of us can choose for anyone. However, once I've helped someone have the awareness when it comes to anything, that gives me so much peace because, now that person for the rest of their life has the choice. And even if they choose the opposite of what I would choose, like I'm not that, if I let that affect my energy in the moment, I'm trying to change something that I have zero power to control how someone's vibrating or how someone's energy is in the moment, other than, maybe just being an example of, again, be the light that we want to see in the world. And, having compassion if someone right now isn't, living in the optimal energy that I would want to live in, because I've been there for sure. So for me to judge or criticize or condemn, that's just going to make me feel like crap, as well. So,
along what you're saying, one place I think a lot of people get tripped up, and I'm totally in this boat, so I have nowhere to judge. I just recognize that I get tripped up. So let's say I go somewhere with the right intent, and I've got like the right vibration, or I've got the right setup, and I know that I'm doing it, like I feel positive. I prepped myself for this moment, and I'm going with the positive energy, and I go out to do it, and it doesn't go the way I wanted it to go. And then it's like, oh man, now I feel disappointed. That disappointment is actually a false negative. So it's kind of weird because like the negative doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. What it really, and this is where it comes where the emotions are backwards, because of the things we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch are not representations of what's really going on. Because internally, if you look at it, it's also filtered by preconceived notions about what we're taught to through society or the things we've gathered throughout life. If I see this, it must be good. If I hear this, it must be good. Not always. Not always. So, okay, back to this false negative. If I get disappointed because I didn't get the result that I really wanted, what it really means is, Aaron, your emotion is actually telling you that you based your self-worth for being good enough on the reciprocity of that result. And until you stop doing that, you're actually sending mixed signals because you are not at peace with this because you let it control how you feel. And when you know your true worth, then it no longer has control to determine how you feel. You control the outcome. But you don't have to do that just to pretend, okay, now I'm going to control how I feel so I can get the outcome, because again, that's lying to myself, to get the result, to feel something. Like, no, I'm truly okay either way because it doesn't affect who I am. Then, because I truly let it go, not that I don't desire it, but I truly don't have it to feel something, that's a really good indicator. That's a really good indicator that I'm on the right path because I'm at peace either way. Not that I can't have a preference, but the result doesn't determine how I feel. That's a really good indicator that somebody's sending the right signal, the right vibration.
absolutely. You guys rewind and listen to Aaron's part again. What he just said. That's so important. Like that's.
It's deep.
It is.
It's deep.
It is. It's so interesting because like I've done. This has been one of the main topics that I've been wanting to share because just it's almost like we can desire it for sure. We're gonna have desires. We live in an expanding universe. Like there's things that we see that are beautiful in this world that we want to experience, and that's all part of it. It's all part of being human for sure. So I'll never tell anyone to stop desiring because I don't really believe that that's even possible for those that think that, because we're expanding beings. So it's just like we're going to have things that we want to see evolve in our lives. However, can we be happy now? Can we be who we truly are now and not need it in order to do so, like Aaron just said? And I mean, that's when the desires show up, is when we desire it, and then we can just go back to being present in the moment, because we don't need it either way to be here living in this moment. It'd be cool to have an experience, and for those, as soon as you don't need it, that's when it comes. And then it's like, yeah, it is a cool experience. It's just an additional, cool life experience on top of where you already are doing, the path that you're already on. It's not the end all be all. Like the result as far, when we said the cliche, like the joy is in the journey. I've been at points in my life where the journey was zero joy. It was just all about the destination, and the longer the destination took to come, the worse the journey felt. And that's just a rough place to live. There's going to be a lot of depressing days there where it's like, well, I want this,
Sure.
I want this amount of success, or I want this health goal, and like I'm nowhere near that today, so I guess I'm just gonna be upset today. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't have
yeah.
to be
Well
that.
said.
Yeah.
It's tricky. So, like, sometimes, now here's the intellectual part. This isn't the emotional part because people, I mean, now I'll try to say, okay, here's what's going on in the moment, why people might feel nervous, why people might feel like scared, or why they might feel hesitant, or any emotion that you have other than peace, as a matter of fact. And we can get into that later, but some people might disagree, but even happiness or joy or like elated is actually something caused outside of ourselves to tell us how to feel about ourselves. We can get into that later, but if we're trying to stay in the moment, anything that we cannot control will fire off that chemical reaction in the brain to whether it fires off depression, anxiety, whether it, I mean, those are a lot of the people that I work with, or whether it fires off even happiness or joy, or even if it fires off hesitation or doubt, even if it fires off um, like scared or worried or anything like that. Because if it's anything outside of our control, it's trying to control something that I can't, and to be honest, so I can either feel good enough or so I can feel loved. Because if I get that, then I believe, yes, now I have reason to be happy. Now I have reason to be okay with myself. Now I've just proved or validated to myself that I am worth something because I finally got it. Or maybe somebody else. Now I've validated to my wife that I'm good enough to put food on the table or have a bigger house. Or I've validated myself in society because I have, kids now that they look really good and they're a good reflection of me. All of that stuff is external that I cannot control to tell me how I can feel about myself, which goes back to if you can't control it and you're trying to control it, it will always fire off a negative emotion. The only emotion that doesn't fire that off is peace. It's the only one. It's the only one. Because even happiness, it's like, okay, if you think about it, it was something outside of me that had to happen to now it's the thing that triggered me to allow me to feel the way I wanted to feel about myself. And yeah, people will be like, dude, what's wrong with happiness? What's wrong with joy? Nothing. But you have to admit, it's something outside of myself that triggered me to feel that inside. I should have been able to feel that anyway, even if the external thing didn't happen, which means it's a false positive. And so one day when that thing is taken away because I can't control it, oh, I'll feel it all right. I'll feel it. And depending on how high it is on my hierarchy of importance, I may panic more. If it's something I don't really care about, I won't panic at all. It'll just be an inconvenience. But for some people, like relationships is usually pretty high up there. Finances is really a big noose around people's neck. And if I don't have it, because I can't control it, if that's the thing I was hoping to control to feel like I had value or to feel like I was good enough or to validate that I finally made it, oh, I will get hurt and I will feel a pinch. It'll be more than a pinch, too. It'll be pretty bad. So in the moment, a good gauge for that is what is in my control that I can do right now, and it'll probably force me to become a better person. Those three. What can I do? It's in my control right now. It'll probably force me to become a better version of myself, a better person. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Super interesting. I've never given any thought to what you just described as far as the vibration energy of peace, and then because when I describe energy, I always mention as peace being like I like living life in just a nice, like peaceful, content state where it's not needing anything. Like I'm good. And at the
Yeah.
same time, I
Yeah.
notice from that state of being, that's when a good idea will pop into my mind. Where now, like
You got it.
more momentum will add to that energy to where it's like, okay, I'm excited, I'm passionate about this. So I'm always just paying attention to the momentum of energy as far as like what direction is going. Am I going from, where I am to moving towards like excitement or passion or joy or love, or am I going from where I am to frustrated, worried, upset, depressed? And so I'm always paying attention to the
Yeah.
momentum of energy. But it is interesting because as that momentum, if we say that the idea is like the external thing or thinking about that, then yeah, that definitely is causing the momentum or just going to do something. So, like Aaron said, nothing wrong with any frequency really. I mean, you could leave your house and be and rage all day
Yeah.
today. I just like to remind people that that movie, the movie called Life, where you're the star, the scene that you're in today, if we choose to live the whole movie scene in rage, it's going to be some rough scenes today. Like it's going to be it's a dramatic part of the movie today. Like this won't be like the love scene in the movie
Right.
if you're experiencing it all in rage. So, but I like what you said because I'm like peace is the baseline for me. Like I know that, like for instance, every
Mm.
day I wake up and I meditate on purpose to just allow myself to be in peace. I immediately wake up and think about things to be grateful for because I just like to start my
Yeah.
state of being there. Um,
Hmm.
and then from there I'll meditate until I'm feeling a nice like peaceful calm state, and then I'm excited if momentum does pick up and like carry it there. But I see what you're saying, like if you are searching for the external in order to label yourself like, okay, I'm happy because I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
I just drank this bottle of alcohol, or I just just did whatever, and that's like needed. When that is removed, then yeah, there could be a lot of pain left in its place. So that's interesting. I've
It's
never heard anyone
tricky.
describe it that way.
It's tricky because, okay, let's say somebody's taking illicit drugs, right? I don't really care. And I've actually worked with a lot of people who have. Actually worked with quite a few people who still do. Um, so the illicit drugs, somebody, an outsider would look at that and be like, oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. They know they're not happy. They know they're not happy. The outside person would be like, they know they're not happy. They're just doing that to kind of distract themselves from the emotion they don't really want to feel. So when they pretend to feel happy, that's just the drug giving them the chemical reaction. So a lot of people would look at that situation and be like, yeah, that's a false positive. It's the drug that's making them happy. But a lot of people don't look at it when they see, oh, yeah, I'm going on vacation today. Oh, I'm going to the beach today. It's going to be so much fun. They're like, dude, what's wrong with that? Nothing. But it's not peace. It's something external that triggered me to now feel internally happy. It's not peace. And in fact, that type of thing actually sends mixed signals anytime I'm trying to get something I really want in life, because it says I have to achieve it to be it. It's backwards. Totally backwards. And it sends mixed signals to say that I'm only worth it if I achieve it. And that is not true. Not true at all. Um, getting really geeky and scientific, when I filed this patent, I had to defend it in front of a bunch of people. So I had to have like the scientific reason. I actually like that geeky stuff. So you mentioned that sometimes you have all these ideas when you're at peace. It makes perfect sense. So if you look at this spectrum of, I guess, I'm trying to look at the camera thinking which way is left, which way is right, because it's opposite. So when somebody's at peace, it operates at about 600 hertz per second. That's like the number of cycles your brain's going through. If you feel like proud or egotistical or fear, it's like way down at the bottom. It's like 60 to 100 hertz. So your brain isn't operating on a vibration that will do you any good at all. If you're at acceptance, it's like, okay, fine. I'll just go along with it, whatever. It's still only 300. Still only 300. Like, okay, fine, I won't throw a fit about it, I'll just go along with it. Still only 300. If you get to joy, love, now it's about 500, 550 hertz per second. Even peace is stronger than those because I don't have to have the reciprocity or anything else out of myself to now feel lovable. I can love that part of myself even regardless of the outcome. Then all of a sudden you get to 600 hertz per second, and some people will argue on this next part, but a breakthrough or an epiphany, if you ever had like the aha moment, like, oh, that's what that means, and you start connecting the dots. I get it. That only happens at 700 hertz. So you have to get past that 600, the peaceful state, before you can even have it. So it makes perfect sense, Noah, when you're saying, yeah, I like to start my day out that way. I like to start my day out thinking like something to get me in that mindful state of peace, because that's when the ideas come. That makes perfect sense. In fact, that's how you can have breakthroughs on demand. You actually can. You go through the things that you're sending mixed signals on, and I mean, that's probably more than the intention of this conversation, but you go through the things where you're sending mixed signals to get to that state of peace in that area. Oh, and the light bulb, you can have it go off every single time on demand. It's amazing. It's amazing. It actually becomes kind of like a drug where it's like, oh, I love that breakthrough feeling, that epiphany where it's like, whoa, I never want to come down from here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. I call those downloads from the universe. Like, here, Noel, you're
Yeah.
in tune.
Yeah.
You're in tune with this frequency now. Here's something that you've been asking about, and I love
Well
knowing
said.
that we can ask any question that matters to us in any area of life, and the likelihood of it popping into our mind in the same frequency. So, say I'm like, looking at my bank account or looking at myself in the mirror, and I'm not liking what I see, and I'm like, dang, like how can I just make some money? Like that energy is not the frequency that likely the idea of ooh, like what Aaron just described. That's a much
Yeah.
different frequency because that's more in like a worried or like it's a lack of the money energy versus the
Totally.
being in tune with it. So that was a big challenge for me before coming aware of this, because
Oh yeah.
in those modes where you're
I'm in
trying
the
to like
club.
figure it out right now, it's like, all right, like I'm not getting up from this table, and so I figure like everything there is to know about. It's a rough place to figure things out from, and a lot of times we can beat ourselves up because why can't and why, and maybe start comparing ourselves, like why is it working for these people and not for me, and it's just kind of a
Totally.
rough go. So like conversations like these bring so much awareness to this, to where if this matters, and I always challenge people as far as like, does any of this matter to you, by seeing, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
like we're more powerful, there's more going on than I thought. For me, that mattered more than anything. So I started to learn, to have awarenesses come, and then probably most importantly, because it matters so much, practice. Like just start to become aware of,
Mm-hmm.
what's my right now state of being. Like what am I measuring right now? Which is, it's cool being alive. I know you agree, Aaron, in 2020, where what you described, like everything that we talk about energetically can be measured now scientifically. Like there's
Yeah, it can.
tools to do it.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah. So I mean,
They
I
can measure it with your saliva. Yeah,
wow, I didn't know
totally.
that. That's cool. Vibration with the they can measure our, wow. That's super interesting. So how long is it?
Yeah.
How long does it maintain the actual like vibration where it's collected? Like just that's, they can measure it from the moment that it's collected, the saliva. That's the vibration that it's in, and it stays that
Yeah.
for a period of time or something.
The only way it would change, and this is difficult. This is difficult. So let's say you take a swab, and you take a swab from my saliva. The moment it collides with anything else, it will start to change. So it's like you try your darndest to keep that thing isolated so you can, but then even when you isolate it in that vacuum or that recipient or that tube or the beaker or whatever it is, well, now you're getting the vibration from the beaker or the tube or the reciprocal, so it's the recipient. So it's like, okay, well, how do you really do it? But, oh, yeah, you can totally do it. You can totally do it. So it takes some fine tweaking to try to get it so that the vessel that they take the swab, put it in there, it takes some fine tuning to make sure it doesn't have the same influence, and it does. Okay, it does simply by being in that environment. But they can tell a difference. They can tell a difference, even if it does affect it. They try to measure the effect it has on it, and then take that away in the end when they do the measurements. They can get pretty accurate. They can get pretty accurate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the message for all of us. And Aaron, you're a great example of this. And I know I enjoy being an example of this, of how someone can, at one point in our life, like Aaron wasn't aware of any of this stuff consciously. I wasn't aware of any of this stuff consciously. And then it mattered enough to where, we allowed the awareness to come in, the consciousness to come in, but then it's just an ongoing practice. And I've noticed so much in my life over the years how things that a decade ago were some of my greatest weaknesses now today, because they matter so much as far as what version of Noel am I bringing to this moment, which is in
True,
truth, what
true.
else can we really control? I mean, I can't bring a version of Noel to yesterday or to tomorrow, because it's still going to be now when I get to. So
Yeah.
once I've realized that and started practicing it, then I'm like, wow, a decade later, the things that used to bother me or that I used to be critical of in myself or others, I'm just not anymore. And if I am, I'm aware of it right away, to where it doesn't have to continue on throughout a minute or an hour or a day or maybe a full year. Like
Mm.
I've had full years where I'm like just critical of just like life. And if there's an
Oh yeah.
easier year
Yeah.
to be that way right now, I mean, 2020 probably be a pretty easy year to be just critical of everything.
Right.
It'll make it a really rough year though, if that's the choice that's made to,
It can be difficult. So like Some people, I'll admit, not everybody needs, my kind of service or any service really. Really, the people that I work with the most are the people that they don't feel comfortable doing it on their own because they don't know how to do it on their own. But, and the same is probably true with you in the end, where like some people hear what you say and it totally resonates and like, yes, I know what to do. I know what to do. But the trick is like you have been exposed to something that you know how to do it for people who have yet to be exposed to it. And that's the part that's tricky. Because going back to what can I control right now in this moment, sorry, man, not a daggone thing. And some people might say, yeah, but I have my intellectual capital, I have my physical ability. Well, this is really tricky, and maybe some people will get it anyway, and I'm just talking myself up, but what is not always is actually never. There's actually never a sometimes. And it's really tricky because it's like, okay, well, I can control my body. Can you always, absolutely, no matter what, in any circumstance, control your body? Like, what if somebody, I don't know, what if somebody drugged your coffee, or if somebody like put some illicit drug and they drugged your drink and you were unaware of it or something? And now all of a sudden it makes you hallucinate, so you can't control your thoughts. And now all of a sudden your body's paralyzed. Do you really always have control of your body? The answer is obviously, well, after that, the answer is no. So then it's tricky. Did you ever have control of your body? The answer is also no. Because if it's not always, it's never. And the things that really manifest what we really want in life are the things that we can always control, which is tricky. It's tricky. And there's just one. There's just one. The fact that you will always exist, you can't really control that because you can't take, like even if you gave up your body and you didn't have a body anymore, well, the first law of thermodynamics states that matter's neither created nor destroyed, it just takes on a different form. So that's why we have to let go of the outcome, or even if we like or dislike our body, because it doesn't define us. It never did. Anything we can't control never defined us. But the moment we believe it does, we send out these mixed signals and we actually repel the very thing we wanted in the first place by thinking we had to control it to feel better in some way. And that's why it's like, no, go back. And it sounds like, okay, well, true. The only thing I can control is nothing. So I need to disconnect the feeling that I'm now worth more. I'll feel better the moment I get it. None of that is true. None of that is true. And it's like, it's opposite. It's opposite. It's like I have to know that I'm worth something regardless of what I get. And paradoxically, that's how we get it. That's how we get it. Because we no longer had to have, the not getting it to fill the void to prove that I have to get this to be worth something. But then, like, we actually fear if we get it, wait, now I have nothing else to go for, so am I really worth something if I have nothing else? Oh, wait, I actually don't want that something, because then once I have it, I won't know what else to go for, so I kind of like the challenge where I'm at right now to go for it, to believe I have purpose. But we had purpose before we began the trek of the journey. Does that make any sense? Because it's like all twisted, and it's like counterintuitive, because it is not what society's thinking exposes us to. Not at all.
Absolutely.
Not at all.
Absolutely. No, it's absolutely. You guys rewind and listen to what Aaron just said again, because it does. It makes you. It definitely makes you think and really ask yourself, what is it that we do control? And to the extent that I do, I just know it's like, okay, what version of Noel am I going to bring to this moment? Am I going to bring the at peace version of Noel? And to the extent that I control that, without the the extracurricular examples that you used, then then I wouldn't get to choose like what version of Noel. So that just gives me more gratitude for right now in this moment, being clear of thought and mind to where I do get to bring the version that I'm choosing, and just choose to live as many moments in that energy as possible, because that gives any of us especially because in the moments that we're at peace, like Aaron's describing, in those moments we don't need anything to feel the peace. Like that's our state of being. And then paradoxically, that's when we start attracting things and manifesting things where it's like, oh, that's cool. But we already didn't need it, so it's just it's just an additional part of this life experience, which um, that's
Right.
that's the quote unquote work for us all. It's like
That is the work.
do you need it before you can be it? And like that saying, who invented the saying, Aaron? I'll believe it when I see it. It's a
Mm.
rough way to live.
Yeah,
It's
because then
gonna,
it's like I can only be a believer if I achieve. Well,
I know.
sending mixed signals right there. Like you can be anything you want, regardless of achieving anything. So then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I'm telling the universe who I am. The universe already knows who I am simply because I exist. I'm sending mixed signals that I have to have it to now believe. It's like, well, universe doesn't play favorites. Universe just has laws. Some of them are laws of physics. And it's like it doesn't distinguish, it doesn't differentiate between people. It has no bias, it has no racism, no prejudice. It's just that's what the law is. And you can either, I can either kick against the pricks or I can get my teeth kicked in or I can keep bashing my head against the wall. It doesn't distinguish between race, it doesn't distinguish between desires, wants, appetites, it doesn't distinguish between pasts, histories. That's just what the law is. And those are the parameters that we all have to fit between in order to get what we really want. And yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I was trying to think today, I fall victim to this all the time. So like today, what was I working on today? Oh yeah, I was trying to come to terms with the fact that every time I want to grow and achieve a new result, like for me right now, I want to make more income. Um, so I'm trying to get to like $50,000 a month. That's what I'm trying to do right now. And I've already gotten past the issues of, okay, dude, don't you think that's a little greedy? Don't you think like do you really think you need that much? And it was like I never did it for me personally. I know there are people I've worked with that have done it for the greed, but for me personally, I never did it for the greed. Mine was on the opposite side. If I actually worried what people would think of me. I worried what people would think of me because I either didn't meet their expectation of what somebody making that much money should have, or I worried how I would get treated. Like people might have jealousies because when I started making 10,000 a month, people started treating me differently. And I was like, oh man, it's going to happen again. So it's tricky because it's like, could they? Yeah, they very well could. They very well could. I'm not going to lie about that. But interestingly enough, that was the piece holding me back because I didn't want to go. I subconsciously didn't want to go after it because I worried what somebody else thought, and I had to validate my self worth from them about whether I was good enough to get it. And it's like, no, 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 no. The universe does not say that you're worth something because now somebody else also agrees. You have worth because you have existence, regardless of whether or not somebody else agrees. And when you believe that, then whether they agree or disagree no longer has the power to hold you back. It was a good lesson. It was a good lesson for me. And it's like now, some of the things that people might say, some of the things people I don't know what's going to come, what I'll be exposed to in the future. But as far as what I know, the prejudices that people might have or something, I'm okay with. I'm okay with. I don't have to let their insecurity hold me back and make one up for me. Um, but it's tricky. It's tricky. Like, what is that thing I'm really searching for? Was it really the money? Well, in that case, it wasn't. It was actually, I was looking for the approval of other people when I had the money. It's like, okay, so the universe actually granted that to me. It actually did. Until I overcame the fact that, oh, okay, I shouldn't be worried what they think of the validation if I make it or don't make it. Know what I'm worth, regardless. And then what they think has no power over me to hold me back from it. It's tricky. It's pretty twisted, and we got all these avenues that our brain has to go to figure this stuff out sometimes. Um, but there are ways to do it. Like figure out what are my priorities. Do I have them in the right order, and do I have them for the right reason? So, for instance, I was working with a gal this morning. She wanted to find. She was like, okay, I have no problem getting guys. I get guys all the time. But like, I start dating them, and then they just ghost me. I never even figure out why they left or anything. They blocked me on Facebook, Instagram. I can't even contact them anymore. They won't answer my texts. And she's like, sometimes I get my friends to spy on them and then get back to me because I can't get to them and see what their profiles knew. And so she goes, the number one thing in a relationship. So going back to priorities to know, because you can't get a goal if you don't have the right priorities. You won't get it. Something else will trump it. So her priorities were the number one thing she looks for in a good relationship is understanding. She wants the guy to be understanding. She wants to be understanding of him. That sounds really good on the surface. Have an understanding relationship. But then it's like, okay, so does she have it for the right reasons? So then we look into that and we say, okay, she believed, I'm trying to remember this, she believed if the guy didn't believe that he was understood, she would try harder to make him know that he is understood. Like, I have to make this relationship work to prove that I am good enough and that I am understanding. So you see how she needed that external validation from him that she can't control to believe that she is good enough for the relationship. So interestingly enough, the common denominator that we talked about at the beginning, she was the common denominator. She actually didn't want a guy that was understanding, paradoxically, because she was still caught up in all the guys that she had to prove to them to get their validation that she was worth saving the relationship. So she wanted the validation from somebody else to believe that she was good enough for a relationship. So she actually attracted all those guys that she had to prove it to, because that's what she really wanted to do, to prove she was worth something, instead of, I'm good enough even if I can't convince somebody and I don't have to prove it. And then all of a sudden, however the guy responds has no power to affect her. And that void that she was trying to fill by having a guy to validate her, she no longer needs that. Which, interestingly enough, on the opposite side, those kind of guys that have a void themselves to get a girl to whip their butt into shape, they're not attracted to her either, because she's not going to do that. She already believes in herself enough to know she doesn't have to do it. Her preferences, her preferential systems actually shift towards a different type of guy. It's amazing. Like, that's really how the law of attraction works. It's like, okay, what am I prioritizing? Is it in the right order, and am I doing it for the right reasons? Something I can control or something I can't control? If you figure that part out, that's a really, really good indicator of that's why I'm not getting it, or that is why I will get it.
Absolutely. No, that's thank you for sharing. You're good at sharing stories, Aaron, as far as like, and I'm happy that you shared one just personal story, because that humanizes. I try to do that as much as possible, because we have these conversations and we're talking about, stuff that anybody that's ready could be impacted by the things that you're sharing. And at the same time, this is a forever journey for you and for myself and for all of us. And it doesn't. None of us just turn into like the reason I call this podcast Enlightened Conversations, because I know in the moment of the moment of like having the intention to empower the audience and being connected, like we mentioned, like having those downloads pop in, like I receive lots of those to be able to flow with the intention of empowering an audience. So in those moments, it is an enlightened conversation. But if we were on here complaining about what's going on in the world, we'd have to call it complaining conversation or frustrated conversation, or so it's only in the moment. This is where we're choosing to spend time right now. So I appreciate those two examples, like with the love example, relationship example. So important. I see so many people. Focusing on the things that they don't want, or that they're trying to prove, or all these things, and they're just magnets to more examples of. That's why it's so common for the person you were describing as an example. It's so common for people to see very similar things playing out. Because you're the common denominator of it, so it's going to play out the same way until you make a shift and evolve into and again not need it to be a certain way. And that's so powerful when it comes to relationships, because we can all feel that, like if someone like needs us to be a certain way in order for them to feel good, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility that you're giving it. It's not even possible. Like there's no amount of hoops that one person can jump through to where you're going to feel good ongoing by them doing so. So absolutely. I love it. Anything you want to share with the audience as far as how to connect with you or work with you or any of this stuff? Is Facebook the best way? Or I'll put all the links here for you guys watching this when this comes out.
There's So I have a website called howtodate101.com. That's probably the best way right now. Howtodate101.com. And people can sign up for a free consultation if they want. Even people watching this years down the road. Howtodate101.com. The consultation is free. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So like my intention on the consultation, like I'm not gonna lie, my intention is to find out who wants to buy the services. But I'll also admit in the same paragraph, same breath, that not everybody needs it. Not everybody needs it. So the consultation will show, okay, these are your indicators. And they will tell you what your priorities are, what they are in order, and if you should have them in order to achieve that goal that you really want. In the area of relationships, it's like, okay, why you're not finding the right guy, what you may be doing wrong, or why you can't get over the trauma from the past relationships or the trust issues that you have to be able to find that right guy, why you're actually pushing them away. I really don't care if somebody goes there and it's not relationship based, because what I did in this patent that I filed earlier this year in January, I wanted this daggone thing to be foolproof. If you haven't already figured out from the conversation, I love finding like an absolute truth, like black and white demarcation that will always work. So it works for anything. It really does. It is the first psychology ever to prove that it will guarantee a cure in depression, anxiety, tics and Tourette's, schizophrenia, bipolar, did you name it. It's pretty good. And if you go through it, it's like, well, that sounds like, that's really bold to say something like that. And it is. It is. It's pretty presumptuous. But at the same time, the only reason anybody gets anything in life is because it's a priority to get it. Now, I'm not saying it's a deliberate priority, and I'm not saying it's purposeful, like I knew I was going to get that. No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, like, let's say, Noel, you and I are on, I know this is a weird example, but let's say you and I are on the street, we're walking down, you're headed one way, I'm headed the other way. I'm trying to look at the camera and make sure I'm going the right direction with my hands. And we accidentally bump shoulders. It was actually a priority to bump shoulders. It was like, no, dude. Maybe not deliberately, but it was your priority to walk in that line. And for whatever reason, it was my priority to walk looking at my cell phone at the time rather than look to see what I was doing. And that's what made it the priority, not directly, but indirectly. And that's where it gets so tricky, because we didn't know that was the stuff that we would get in return for the thing that we were doing, because it was an indirect correlation. But anything in life, if you look at it, we only get it because we prioritize it. So I have heard the saying before, and it kind of depends on how people define things, because sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. Like some people will say, if you desire something but you need it, you won't get it. And that depends on how you interpret the needing part. Because I've had things that I've desired and I've gotten. I've had things that I've desired and I haven't gotten them. I've had things that I needed and I got them. And I've had things that I've needed and I didn't get them. But one thing that's always true is you will always get what you prioritize. No doubt about it. Now, I just have to be honest with myself and be like, yeah, I didn't get off the couch. I was binge watching on Netflix, which I have done. So I'm not judging. So it's like, okay, that's why I didn't put out the next advertising campaign. Or that's why I didn't go out to the party to meet the person I was supposed to party with, or the person I was supposed to meet, cross paths with, because my priority was actually over here. So in that consultation, that's what we cover. We cover, okay, let's figure out what your priorities are, what they are in order, and do you have them for the right reason? And it's pretty insightful. Like, oh my gosh, the light bulb. As far as the intellectual exposure, people need to make a change. We don't go over the emotional one, but it's the same thing. What's your emotional priority? What are your emotional priorities in order? Do you have them for the right reasons? If you get those things lined up, there is no power anywhere that could prevent you from getting it. The universe doesn't play favorites. It doesn't have prejudice. It just has parameters. And one of those absolute truths that is true no matter where you go, at all times, all places, is if you meet the priority that the goal demands, you will always hit the goal. No exceptions. no exceptions. So then it's just a matter of, okay, how do I figure out what I'm prioritizing that I should be and what I'm prioritizing that I shouldn't be? And in my case, I work a lot with relationships on howtodate101.com. But I actually get people on there sometimes for other things too, which doesn't matter. It's the same principle. Priorities, what are they in order? Do I have them for the right reasons? And not everybody necessarily needs, after they find out what it is, they're like, oh my gosh, that's the light bulb. Thank you very much. But they only need my help if they don't feel comfortable doing it themselves. Sometimes from there, they actually do, and I really don't care. I mean, do I do this for the money? Yeah, I do, I'll be honest. But at the same time, I would do it without the money, dude. I totally would. I'm super passionate about it. I love doing it. And I don't see myself stopping anytime soon.
I love it, brother. No, this is awesome. You guys definitely take advantage of Aaron's free consultation. And I always tell people, Aaron, if they're inspired if there's any curiosity at all, whether it's like, that's curious, that's interesting, like I want to explore this, it's a really great next step on the journey of life, because without taking the step, then there's no life experience. And without the life experience, there's no new clarity. So you don't have a clearer picture of, this is the direction I want to go, or this. You're kind of in the same place if you you haven't had a new life experience. Yeah. So always valuable, especially when it comes to you guys. If you watched and listened to this far in the episode, then I know that there's already been impactful things that have been shared. So if you guys are watching this live, share this so that people can be inspired by it and impacted by it. And just appreciate you for coming on, Aaron. You shared lots of cool things, and I know we could choose a subject out of the air and talk about it very easily, because like you said, everything that we're describing.
Like you, man.
Yeah.
I like people like you. It's so easy to talk about anything because it's like, well, with you, I've noticed, you've just gotten to a place where so we all have areas of our life where we're not secure, areas of our life where we are. We all have them. But it's really cool because in that area of your life, it's pretty easy to tell that you feel good enough about yourself that you're open to any conversation. So I'm with you. We could probably talk. Somebody could draw a topic out of a hat, and we'd probably start talking about it. You'd be just fine with it.
For sure.
That's cool.
That'd be a good idea for a conversation one day, just to see where it goes. Send your topics in, and let's just see where it goes synchronistically. Kind of what happens anyway. It's just. Well, I'm happy to be connected with you now, Aaron, and affirm that this is our first co-creation, and there'll be more, because I'm definitely curious about all the things that you're doing, and you could feel the passion from you. So I know that this is, when you mentioned you would do this, even if it was for free.
I would.
I think that's great for all of us out there. I think that's a really great question to ask ourselves: is what we spend.
I'd have to find another income source, but I would still do it.
For sure.
Yeah. I would.
It's a great question for all of us to ask. Will we continue to do the thing that we're doing right now for money if the money was not part of it? And just to be aware of it, and there might leave open possibility to be able to have something show up in our life that we could answer that question, like Aaron. And there's a way to get it all to where we don't have to sacrifice one thing to have another thing. We can, again.
We don't.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I love it, brother. Well, I appreciate your time here, and you guys definitely share this episode and rate this episode. Say that Aaron Human was awesome, and I became aware of this, and this, and I'll screenshot it and tag him in it, and we'll leave that review for him.
Thanks,
and you guys just have a beautiful day whenever you hear this, and we look forward to talking with you guys soon on another episode. And you guys definitely connect with Aaron and participate if you're inspired to participate. I think there will be some good stuff for you guys, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Awesome. Here, I'm gonna stop the stream, Aaron, and I'll say bye to you. Give me a second.